at Ice now. Gimme Cat. This is a monster, 1-drop. Discard 1 ice card by dulling him. Your opponent discards 1 card. You can only use this ability during your turn and only once per turn. 1 ICP. Put Gimme Cat into the break zone. Your opponent randomly discards 1 card. You can only use this ability during your turn. So this is good for those discard decks. And with it being ice, there's so many ways to just keep looping the discards. So I see this card being a problem. So I probably will use the crap out of it. Necron. Necron is a 4-drop 8k forward. When he enters the field, choose 1 forward of cost 5 or less your opponent controls. Remove it from the game as long as Necron is on the field. And then you can pay 1 ICP and dull him. Choose 1 card removed by Necron's ability, put it into the break zone. So this is good because if you block with him and you know the card's about to come back because he's about to be broken, you can just do this. The block still goes through. It puts the card in the break zone. So if it has an on entry trigger, it won't trigger and it'll go to the break zone. And if you're having something else on your field that can remove something that goes to the break zone, then you can essentially keep whatever you need to be gone. So this is a very good card for varying multiple parts of interaction. So kudos to that card. All right, we got Gipple. He is a 5-drop 9k forward. Category 10 forwards other than Gipple you control gain 2k power, and this forward cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities. When Gipple enters the field, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, dull and freeze it. He's good for the power up, and he's good for dulling and freezing something. That cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities is also good as well, and with him being 9k, that also protects him a little bit. So yeah, kudos to him, and then give him the power boost. The 10 forwards just makes 10 a little stronger than I think it already was. So Chimera Brain, 3-drop 9k forward when it becomes a forward. Monster 9k when it becomes a forward. For 0 cost until the end of the turn, Chimera Brain also becomes a forward with 9k, and when Chimera attacks, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, freeze it. You can only use this ability if your opponent controls any dull forwards and only once per turn. So this is good because it's cheap and it's strong. And you shouldn't have a problem with your opponent having a dull forward in ice. So I can see this card being used pretty often in ice, ice light and ice wind, because the more you have frozen, the more opportunities you have to do a lot of things. So Edward, 3-drop backup. When Edward enters the field, choose up to 2 characters your opponent controls. If your opponent has 1 card or less in their hand, dull them and freeze them. When Edward enters the field, if your opponent has 3 cards or more in their hand, your opponent discards 1 card. So he's good regardless of what's going on. Your opponent is either going to discard, or your opponent is either going to get a card dull and frozen. So he is good at any point that you play him. So it's getting pretty bad. There's too many cards that are good to use the same name. Kurasame, 6-drop 9k forward with EX burst. He is a warper. Takes 2 turns to warp him, 1 ice and 1 whatever else element. When he enters the field, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 among them to your hand, and return the others to the bottom in any order. So he is essentially like the that fire card we just read, except for this one has an EX burst, and well, I think she had an EX burst too. I think it was Deuce. Yeah, this is nice because it's a warper and it's not a long warp, and I mean, you get a free card. Essentially, well, you get the payback for warping it. So this is fun. I mean, I think this is a good turn 1 card, 9k. So even if something happens, it can protect itself a little bit. So I respect this card. All right. I don't know if this is Zed or Zed. Either way, it is a 5-drop 8k forward with back attack. When he is dealt damage by a character your opponent controls, your opponent selects one dull character they control, put it into the break zone. Remove 3 ice cards in your break zone from the game. Zed gains 3k until the end of the turn. This is a good blocker, especially if they don't know you have it. And as long as he doesn't get his stuff negated by Amaterasu or blown up by anything, you can essentially possibly block everything. Because you can constantly give him a boost as long as you have 3 cards. Now, I see a lot of people say that this removing cards from the game is going to be horrendous, but just know at some point we're going to be able to get these cards back, and then at some point all the limit break cards that we flip over, we're going to be able to reflip and reuse. So I estimate maybe by Opus 26, the latest Opus 27, but that is just my guess at the moment. Next is Sephiroth, a 4-drop soldier with 8k. He has first strike, looking dapper. The job soldier forwards other than Sephiroth you control gain first strike. When a forward with first strike you control attacks, your opponent discards 1 card. And then you can pitch 1 copy of Sephiroth, choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. I like this card. I like it because it's a discard on attack and it's the first striker. And there's a lot of cards that have first strike, and it's a soldier. So if you're building a soldier deck, this makes things a little bit easier. This gives them first strike, so it makes your opponent question if you want to block it or not. And if they don't deal with the problem, they're losing resources every time a soldier attacks. So yeah, I like this Sephiroth. This Sephiroth is cool. Soldier candidate, 2-drop 5k forward. When soldier candidate enters the field, choose 1 character your opponent controls, dull it. If you have a card named soldier candidate in the break zone, also freeze it. At damage 3, this card gets 3k. So not really much to say about that other than it's a 7, good facilitator, good dull and freeze, and pretty cheap to play, so you can play multiple if you need to. Chadley is a 2-drop backup. When a forward you control is put from the field into the break zone, place 1 research counter on Chadley. This effect will only trigger during your opponent's turn and only once during that turn. And then you can pay 1 ICP and 1 whatever CP, dull Chadley, remove 3 counters from him, choose 1 forward of 4 or less, cost 4 or less in your break zone, play it onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turn. This is insane. This is, as long as you can keep these counters on him, this card is dangerous because you can just block for the heck of it and send stuff to the break zone on purpose just to have Chadley replay it for probably half the cost. Yeah, this is gross. And I wonder if you make a monster forward, does it still count? Because it's no longer a forward in the break zone. I'd have to check that to verify, but if it is, then that yeah, that's insane if it is. Paladin, 3-drop backup. When Paladin enters the field, select one of the 2 following actions. Choose 1 dull forward, or choose 1 forward, dull it. Draw a card. This is the same as the I think soldier, infantry, a sentry soldier, something like that. So I'm sure each element's gonna get one of these, but I mean they're all gonna be the same opinion. Nuge, 4-drop EX burst backup. When he enters the field, you may search for one card Gipple or card Barreleye and add it to your hand. Duel him, put him into the break zone, deal 5,000 to all duel forwards your opponent controls. So this is good if you have something that's going to duel everything and you already have him out. You can just go ahead and deal some damage, and then if you've already dealt damage via the other effect or via another effect, you can potentially wipe the board. So this is actually pretty good. All right, this is the ice version of the Ifrit. Mateus the Corrupt, drop 4, summon. Before paying the cost to cast Mateus the Corrupt, you can remove one ice backup you control from the game to reduce the cost by 2. Choose one duel forward and one other forward. Break the former and freeze the. Break the former, duel and freeze the latter. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is so good. This is insane. This is so good. Oh, and the art's so nice, dude. It's so good. Oh man, this is so much protection against so many things. Yeah, that's definitely a good card. I don't know if this is Borgin. 5-drop backup. When he enters the field, choose one duel forward, deal it 8k. Your opponent discards one card, and then you can pay one ICP, duel him, put him into the break zone, choose one duel forward, deal it 8k. Yeah, this is pretty good. And this art kind of feels like it deserves a full art, for sure. That art is nasty. Maynard, she got that drapery. 5-drop forward, 8,000 power. At the end of each of your turns, choose one monster put into your break zone from the field during this turn, play it onto the field. This card is stupid. This card is so strong, and the fact that it activates in the end phase means that as long as you can get rid of a monster every turn, you can just essentially just bring it back at the end of each of your turns. I mean, that's so much resource management. That's less you have to spend. That's less you have to worry about trying to recur. And if Witch of the Fens ever figures out a way to make an ice version, yeah, you can best believe this card's gonna be heavily used and make that deck just insane. Just imagine Blue Worm, Blue Goo, Tomberry just constantly coming back. That's exactly what we need. Yuna, 3-drop, 7k forward. She's also a black mage. When Yuna enters the field, you may search for one job Gold Wings and add it to your hand. Play 2 of any CP. Play one job Gold Wings of cost 3 or less from your hand onto the field. You can only use this ability once per turn. And then Blizzara, pitch a copy of Yuna, pay 1 ICP, choose one forward, duel it and freeze it. Your opponent discards 1 card. This is obviously a good card. This is obviously a pretty insane card. It searches. You can play any element as long as it's a gold wing and costs 3 or less. So that if they have backups, you can essentially set up your field to do whatever you want it to do. And then if there's something that's giving you trouble, you can just discard a copy of Yuna, choose a forward, duel it, freeze it. Your opponent discards a card. So she is everything she needs to be, and probably everything that she doesn't need to be, and that's pretty dangerous. So this card is gorgeous. Does it have a full art? It does. I need this. Such a sexy card. Lean or Lin. I think I'm gonna call it Lin or Lean. Anyway, 2 CP, 5,000 power forward. At the beginning of the attack phase, during your opponent's turn, during each of your turns, remove the top card of your deck from the game. You can cast it at any time you would normally cast it this turn. 1 CP of any element. Remove Lane from the game. Choose 1 summon in your break zone. Remove it from the game. During this game, you can cast it at any time you would normally cast it. Yeah, she is good, because it doesn't matter at what time you try to do something to her. You pay that CP, and the cost is to remove her from the game. So as long as they don't get rid of the summon you're trying to choose, you're solid. And this card is this card is beautiful. This is probably gonna be as expensive as the Lulu full art, because it's strong and it does a bunch of stuff.